From the NewsChannel 5 network, this is OpenLine.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to OpenLine. I'm Carrie Sharp. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tonight's topic is the minimum wage and whether you believe that it should be raised or not. You have probably heard that one of the first orders that President Biden has taken is to issue an executive order to look at raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, something that has not been done. The minimum wage has not been raised since 2009. It currently sits at $7.25 an hour, and that is what Tennessee pays. We have Jason Freeman joining us tonight. He is the political director for the SEIU Local 205. Good evening, Jason.
Thanks for having me, Carrie.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to have you back on tonight. Tell us about the union that you are a part of and represent. Who are the members?
Sure. So we have millions of members across the country. Here in Tennessee, we represent public and private sector workers, many Metro government employees, support staff in Metro Nashville Public Schools, staff in Nashville General Hospital. We represent private sector folks at the Lincoln Auto Diesel College on Gallatin Road. Also 2 private hospitals, one in Memphis, St. Francis, and one in Oak Ridge Methodist Medical Center outside Knoxville, as well as Chattanooga City employees. So we're spread out across the country and across different sectors. And
the folks in this union who would be making minimum wage right now, what do those jobs look like? What are they?
Well, it varies. I mean, people think about, people a lot when they hear about the Fight for 15, which is something that our union had a big hand in starting. They think about fast food workers leading on the front lines of that. But here in Nashville, we just got Metro Nashville Public Schools to move to $15 an hour last year. So we had people working, educating our children, paraprofessionals, food service, custodial workers in Nashville Public Schools that were making less than $15 an hour. So I think it just varies tremendously across the state. A couple of years ago, Tennessee had the highest percentage of minimum wage workers of any state in the country. So I think it would have a tremendous impact in our state.
And I do want to pause and invite everybody to call in. This is OpenLine tonight. We would love to hear if you are for or against the idea of raising minimum wage. Love to hear your perspective as a worker or perhaps business owner. And also, if you are living on minimum wage, give us a snapshot of what that looks like in the year 2021. The phone number's on the bottom of the screen, 615-737+, or that is 7587. We would love to hear from you. And Ronnie's going to get us started tonight. I always love it when somebody breaks the ice, because I know that other calls will flow in. Ronnie, thanks for being with us tonight. Go ahead.
Yes, just kind of touching her on it. I've got a daughter that she's working on her RPNs, or RNs, let me rephrase that, as a nurse. And let's just say she's probably going to start out at $25 an hour. And the stress that you would have in a situation like that, but you've got, maybe I need to back up. Maybe I need to back up on that.
Okay, go ahead, back up.
When I was in high school, I worked all my life. Started in high school, working at McDonald's, went to Smokehouse and all this, and it was a bump job.
Sure.
You did what you had to do, going to school to make a few dollars. So fast forward now, I'm old enough, I've got what I want in life, but I've got a daughter that is a nurse, and she's making, let's say, $25 an hour, and you've got somebody working at McDonald's making $15 an hour. What's the stress level between that? The only other thing I can say is cheeseburgers at McDonald's going to go to $10 a piece. I'm going to leave it alone at that. Love y'all. Talk to you later.
All right. Thank you, Ronnie. That is, Jason, I'm sure you have heard every argument under the sun against raising the minimum wage. And that is something that opponents talk about, is really the cycle that this will create. If we raise minimum wage, then other than the cost of labor, the cost of materials, to the consumer is also going to go up. So it's going to kind of negate that bump in pay.
So here's a great example to talk about that. I mean, I think first thing is we have a body of work to look at. I mean, this is not the first time that minimum wage would have been raised. It's happened before in the past. But right now, I went on Grubhub, like that's where we, order food right now or whatever. And I looked at what is a, bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit meal in Seattle, Washington cost, which is where right now their minimum wage is $15 an hour. So their minimum wage is double what our minimum wage is. And their bacon, egg, and cheese biscuit meal is $8.60. Right here in Nashville, you're paying about $6. So it's a couple dollars more. But what I said there was that the workers themselves are going to be making double, $7.25 an hour, more than they're making today. What that means is that there are more people out there that can afford to buy a bacon, egg, and cheese meal. There are more people out there that can afford to go to a restaurant and eat. And what you're going to see is a tremendous stimulus to our economy, because you're going to see people that can go out and spend that extra money. Right now, people that are making minimum wage don't have any extra money, and here's why. The weekly take-home pay of somebody that makes minimum wage currently is $267.
Wow. Is that after taxes or before taxes?
Yes. I believe it's after, but I have to double check. I don't have that in front of me, but that's the weekly take-home pay on minimum wage right now, $267. Monthly, that's $1,150. Our rent in Nashville average is $1,200. Wow. Right? So that person doesn't even, not only they don't make enough money to rent anything. And, I heard the gentleman say something about high school. And there's a misconception, again, like I said, that somehow this is impacting like high school kids and their summer jobs. I started by telling you that people that work in Metro Nashville public schools were making less than $15 an hour up until last year. We have people that are home healthcare workers that are leading this fight, that are taking care of your grandparents in their home, keeping people, comfortable and healthy in their homes, and they're making less than $15 an hour. And so I think the key thing is when you talk about the nurse making $25 an hour, well, she's making $25 an hour based on minimum wage being $17. And if minimum wage goes up to $7.25, that nurse is going to turn around, walk right back into the hospital and say, I should be making $35 an hour, because now they have that bargaining power that everyone will have if the wage goes up. And so I think we shouldn't be looking at, what is this going to take away from someone else? It's what does it give all of us more power to earn more better living ourselves? Because what we've seen in this pandemic is people like Jeff Bezos adding billions of dollars to their wealth on the backs of Amazon workers that are making, less than, I think Amazon did go to 15, but it's not enough.
All right, let's get back to the phone lines. Pam is waiting on the line. Pam, thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes.
I'm all for raising minimum wage, but there's going to be so much arguing with this because everything's going to go raising sky high in pricing. People's not going to be able to afford it, even if they get a raise. I make $13 a month, and I've worked at a job, so I'm not for it.
You're not for it?
I think it's just, no, I'm not for it, because it's just going to make everything raise up in pricing, and even though you're making the more money, you're still going to be spending more out of pocket because everything's going to go higher in price. And then it's going to cause all the companies, it's going to hurt them because, they're going to get more people to work for them, but how long are they going to work for them? How good of a job are they going to do for them? Just because they're making so much money, and these companies are going to be forced to raise pricing on everything. So everything's going to go up. It's not really going to help the economy, I don't believe. I don't believe it's going to help the people, and I don't believe it's going to help businesses.
All right, Pam, thank you for calling in. Appreciate hearing from you tonight. One thing that Pam mentioned was employee morale, and that actually has been talked about, that if minimum wage were to go up, that employee morale would increase, people would work harder. Are there studies to back that up, Jason?
I don't know if there are studies to back it up, but I think it's intuitive that if you're going to work knowing that you're going to take home at the end of the week $267, and you're going to struggle to put food on your table, to put a roof over your head, and really, when you're leaving that job, if you're making $267 and you're an adult in the United States, you're going to your second job and probably your third job, and you're probably not spending any time for yourself. So I think, the thing about prices going up, again, we have plenty of examples of when this has been done, and it's never really transpired that the cost, has gone up. What we know is that Tennessee is among the bottom 10 states in median income. And in places where the minimum wage is higher, everyone earns more money. And so this is really about a rising tide that lifts all boats. You hear that saying. This is truly one of those policies that makes that happen.
I mentioned at the start of the show that President Biden signed an executive order. One of the first things that he did in office to look at this. It wasn't an executive order saying minimum wage will be $15 starting now. It was to look at this and to come up with a plan. This has been looked at a lot before. What is your hope that we will actually see some progress on this?
Sure, and President Biden, his executive order had to do with federal contracts. And so what he did do was say that people that contract with the federal government need to have a $15 minimum wage. You know, it would be great if we could do that in Nashville. If we could say, if you're contracting with Metro Nashville, that you should have to pay people at least a $15 minimum wage. Unfortunately, our state legislature has created laws that interfere with our ability to do that. They have told our cities and towns in Tennessee that we can't put those standards on our own contracting rules. We can't decide how to spend our own taxpayer dollars in Nashville because the state of Tennessee has decided we're not allowed to do that.
And what is the reasoning on that side of it? What's the reasoning they give for that?
Why did they do that?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think you'd have to ask one of the many Republicans in the state legislature who have voted to interfere in our local government processes. But, you know, you could ask them. But I don't know. But I know that, you know, it's interesting. People would also say, you know, why is a minimum wage of $15 good for Nashville, but maybe it's not good for Cookeville? And again, in Tennessee, local government is not allowed to set a different minimum wage because the state legislature has declared that that's not something local governments are allowed to do. They're very continuous pattern of interfering local government's ability to set their own sort of appropriate you know, regulations for their area.
Yeah.
And we certainly hope that this will become legislation that moves through Congress rapidly because it will help millions of people across the country.
Let me try to squeeze in one more phone call before we have to take a quick break. Robert, you have the floor. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Robert, are you with me?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
I didn't hear my name.
That's okay.
Yeah, so I was just figuring out, like, and I'm trying to get on the board with the $15 an hour, but there's a lot of things as far as like a fast food restaurant. There's some things that do need to have a certain minimum wage, but you know, you can't, it's hard to go to McDonald's or a fast food restaurant and, you know, 70% of the time I'd say they get the correct order with everything on it and all this other stuff. Well, you got to think too, McDonald's, Burger King, all them, they shouldn't be, them are teenage jobs, usually except for the management in occasions. And they just have this reality set that I'm going to just work at McDonald's for the rest of my life. And some people are set and cool on that, but it's not set or meant to be a career. And if you want more money, you go after a trade or a college degree, which sometimes that doesn't even amount to what some of the trades can make. So, I mean, you got to step out on a limb and not pay $15 an hour for somebody that works at a fast food joint, because you're going to inflate prices on everything else, and it's not going to work out in anybody's benefit except for the government's, because they're going to be taxing more money. So, yeah, you get them out of poverty, but at the same case, a single mother with 2 kids, they'll get a little bit back on taxes, but they're going to be taxing her through the year. So it's hard to justify $15 an hour for every job. Maybe have it limited to a certain amount of jobs.
All right, Robert, thank you. Jason, what do you think about that?
Well, I hear what Robert is saying, but I think what I would say is that this is the race to the bottom that the people that are doing very well in this country want us to have. They want us to look at each other and say, well, I'm not doing very well, so that person should not do very well based on the job that they do. But the fact is, we've added more, like what we have done in this country over the past 3 decades is turn millionaires into billionaires and leave the rest of us behind. And, you know, the fact is, like I said, take-home pay for a month is $1,150. We're talking about around $15,000 a year for a minimum wage job. The average cost of childcare in Tennessee is $7,500. We're talking about half of a person's salary on what childcare is. And like, when people say prices are going to go up, prices go up because of supply and demand, and because of over time things get more expensive. And the fact is, the wages have just stayed behind and not caught up with the prices. The prices have already gone up. And this is, right now, all we're doing is padding the bottom lines of CEOs.
All right, we have to take a quick break, but we have lots of folks on the line, which I love. Kim, Barry, Ann, and Mike, as soon as we get back, we will get to you. Stay with us.